Yeah, no, if that don't grab you, I don't know what else will. I mean, this is crazy. Hey, what's up, Tempos?
Was good.
It's gonna be a good episode, man. You feeling
Definitely.
it? All right,
You know how
cool.
we do the
You
Brooklyn
know how
way.
we do. We always talk about Brooklyn. Hardcore. All right. Well, listen, y'all came to our show. You seen what we're about to do. So we're just gonna get into it. My name is Gen X. I'm proud to be one of the co-hosts for Back to Basics, a comic book podcast. Welcome, welcome. I'm a Gen Xer, tried and true, as you can see. You lucky you don't see me in my Tims and maybe in my overalls with the graffiti in the front. That's old school right there, and inspired by the folks who we interview. So this is podcast is specifically for us to really center the artists, to center the folks, the creatives who do a lot of this work, and most importantly, we want you all to support them. So everybody who comes through here, please make sure that you write down, make a notation, come back to this podcast, and make sure that you are following them on IG or their socials and even on their YouTube and so on and so forth. But most importantly, buy their stuff because their stuff is dope. We don't put anybody on here that's corny. I'm just gonna be honest with you, right, Tempos? So
Nope, not at all.
yeah, that's just not us. So anyway, today's episode is one that we've been waiting for a year. I've been pestering this man, and I'm okay with that. I'm cool with it. We got him here, and you're gonna learn so much, and we're gonna show you so much. If that intro didn't entice you, like I said, I don't know what you must be dead, and you might be in the next comic book that he has. All right, so now I'm gonna pass it off to my brother from another mother to introduce himself. Go ahead, brother.
My name is Tempos. You know who it is. Bringing you mix of comics culture. You know how I get down. I look forward to providing dope content. We would definitely want to make sure we get you the best content, like Janet said. So do us a favor: subscribe, like, and comment. We want to engage with y'all. We want to see what y'all want us to do, who y'all want us to bring on, and we want to make sure we get y'all the best content. We do it the Brooklyn way.
Remember to follow us also on IG for at Back to Basics _ comic podcast. I know that's long as hell, but trust me, you're gonna want to subscribe to us, connect with us, especially on YouTube. So make sure that you do that. We're trying to get to some pivotal moments, and today I think we're gonna get over that milestone we want to get to. So now back to our guests. Are y'all ready?
Hey,
Here we
what's up,
go. There
guys?
we
Uh,
go. What's
yeah,
up,
I didn't.
Newton?
The first that intro is amazing, man. I love that intro. I was like, man, it's like
Oh, it's all
put
yours.
some
I
work
mean,
into
whatever
this,
you need.
man.
Yeah, man. You know, we're family. It's all good. You know, I'm thankful for you. I met you at a couple of cons. A matter of fact, I've read your book thousands of times.
Oh, okay.
And so I have them all. I have Kisha, and I also have Crescent City. So we're gonna jump into that in a little bit, but I want y'all to know who this man is. This is Newton Lilavois. I hope I said it right because I've been
No, that's
practicing.
that's that's perfect right there.
Yes. That's my Caribbean roots coming in. A little bit of the Spanish flowing through. He's the visionary force in the world of indie comics, carving out a niche with his bold storytelling under the banner of Dream Fury Comics as the creative mind behind the acclaimed series Crescent City Monsters and Kisha, Demon Eater. Lilavois has captivated readers with his unique blend of supernatural elements and rich atmospheric worlds. Beyond these dark and enthralling tales, he's also ventured into the futuristic realm of cyberpunk and is the co-creator of the gripping graphic novel Shattered Vision. With each project, Lilavois continues to push the boundaries of indie comics, crafting stories that linger long after the final page. And let me tell you, when you purchase something from him, you're not getting 2 pages, 3 pages. You get like a novel. This sucker is huge, and you got different color. I mean, it's crazy. Wait till people see exactly what I'm talking about. Color splash covers. I mean, he's got everything in it. So, I guess your artist, which we'll talk more about, Mr. Bernal, Giancarlo Bernal, his freaking a beast. And I need to know how y'all got together. So, we'll talk more about that. But I wanted to give you proper praise and applause from the virtual space back to basics. Thank you so much for coming again. And yeah, would you like to introduce yourself to the world and let folks know who you are, where you're from, and just a little bit about your origin story?
Yeah, so my name is Newton Lilavois. Like you said, I'm the writer and creator of Kisha Demon Eater, along with Crescent City Monsters, and I'm the co-creator of Shattered Visions. TJ Sterling and I worked on that book. That's a cyberpunk sci-fi book. So yeah, those are the three titles I'm currently working on. I plan on having more. If you've been following me, I've been posting about one new book that I'm working on called Young Monster Crew. So that's gonna be like the third book in my supernatural horror world that I'm creating right now. So it's gonna be Kisha Demon Eater, Crescent City Monsters, and Young Monster Crew that are sort of like the flagship titles for this world that I'm building in my comic book for my comic book publishing company. And so yeah, along with that, just trying to create more titles this year. I've been trying to do more writing, so hopefully by within the next 6 to 10 months, you guys are going to even see more books coming out of me, more titles. So I'm excited. There's a few stories that I think is hasn't been done or is unique. So when I put my little spin on it, it's gonna be something that you guys are definitely gonna like.
So tell us about where you grew up, your background. I mean, that to me, I would definitely want folks to kind of get a picture of what that looks like for, for the person that you become. So where'd you grow up? We kind of talked about the Brooklyn side, but
Yeah.
I feel
So
bad for folks who are listening, but you hear it over and over again today. But tell us about your upbringing, how you got into comic books, and just the influences.
yeah, so I was born in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. I came here at a young age. I was 5 years old, and then straight to Brooklyn. So I grew up in East Flatbush, Brooklyn, for the early
Nice.
part of my life. It's funny because I've actually lived in all the boroughs in New York City except Staten Island, but that almost doesn't count.
Ain't nothing over there.
Strong Island, sorry.
Ain't nothing over there.
Sorry, Wu-Tang. Um, but um, so I grew up in East Flatbush, Brooklyn. When I was younger, I I started getting into comics when I was about 10 or 11, and it was interesting because when I first started reading comics, I had some OGs who kind of like guided me. They were only 10, 11 too, but um by then they were already collecting comics, and they kind of schooled me on some of the way to collect comics. And one of the things they did though is they were Marvel heads, and so they were like, hey, DC's corny, just stick with Marvel. So like if for like most like the early parts of like when I was reading comic books, I really stuck with Marvel stuff. I remember one of the my classmates who he used to buy comic books for us because I didn't live near a comic book store, but his older brother, used to go to get comics, and so I'd give him some money and he'd buy comic books for us. And I remember one time reading a comic book and I'm like this, and he said, "Yo, whoa, 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 hold up." He's like, "You don't read a comic book like that. You have to hold it by the spine and you flip the pages so you don't get the crevices on the thing." So as they kind of, so when I say school, that's what I mean. Like they kind of like show you the the little things about reading and collecting comic books. So then from there, my brothers and I, we just really loved comics, and we used to draw comic books. So like, and my brothers are way better artists than I am. So, and at one point, we were kind of on the same level in terms of drawing, but then as the years progressed, they got like way better than I did. And so I just stopped drawing. I was like, maybe I should just, write books, instead of drawing, because I was like, obviously, I'm not as talented as my brothers when it came to illustration. But during the first times when we used to draw comic books, I would actually draw the comic books and then sell it to my classmates. And so like, that was it was a kind of a cool feeling. And I remember one classmate in particular, he he would he would buy my comic books, and one time he told me like, yeah, my mother sees what you're doing and she thinks this is really cool, so she said, keep doing it. And
Wow.
so like, that that kind of always stuck with me because it was like that was the first older person or an adult who saw, and I never met his moms, right? He just told me this. And so when he told me this, and I'm like 12 years old, it kind of hit me because that was like the first adults that encouraged me to do this, or to be artistic, to express myself in that way. And so that kind of always stuck with me. It was like one of those little things that that was kind of inspirational. So at the same time, though, I was also into computers. So I sat down and I would like crack open the computer book and I taught myself how to program. And so as the years went by, like junior high school and high school, I started really doing more computer stuff, right? And uh, all the comic book stuff was just like it kind of died away. But I still like storytelling. So in high school, I took like creative writing classes. I won a few like writing awards, and so like I felt like I could write, right? But that wasn't the thing that stopped me from it was like my grammar and spelling was horrible. I hated English class, so I was like, I probably couldn't be a writer because because I thought I didn't really enjoy the fundamentals of writing, all the grammar and stuff. Like I just really hated English class. I only liked the the writing classes that I had. I didn't, anything that was like rules and like, and that's like I said, grammar and spelling was like really it was bad for me. So like I didn't really think that writing was something that I could pursue as like a profession. So I leaned towards more computer programming. As the years went by, I would still write. In fact, like when I first started dating my wife now, she was an avid reader. She reads a lot, right? Like a lot. So I was like, oh, so one of the things I did was like I wrote her a story, like a fictional story. Like it was like maybe like 3 or 4 pages. It was really short. And she's like, oh, this is really cool. So like, like writing storytelling was still like something that I enjoyed. And my brothers and I, we used to always pitch story ideas to each other, right? So we'd go, oh, I just thought of an idea for a story, and then we'd like tell each other the story. But the thing is, like when we shared the stories, it wasn't like we had a plan, like, oh, I'm gonna make a comic book or I'm gonna write this thing. I mean, that's what we wanted to do, but I guess we never really initially took the initiative to do that. So it was like it was just ideas, but ideas was always something that my brothers and I would pitch to each other. So storytelling like was always in the background, even though I went to college. I graduated focusing on computer information systems. I became a computer programmer. It was just like, and then one time I was back in the Kickstarter project because when Kickstarter launched, I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. You could get all these cool things. And at first, I used to focus on gadgets, right? Because I was like a gadget freak. I was like, oh, look at all these cool things. So I was buying like smart watches, like before that they became big, and they were like these crazy clunky like little gadgets. But I loved it, right? So and then I discovered like, oh, look, they got a comic book section. So I said, let me see what that's about. And I purchased my first comic book on Kickstarter, and it's called Shadow Eyes. It was by Iron Circus Comics. And when I got it back, I was like, yo, the artwork is dope. The story is dope. And then, and it was a thick book. And so man, this is pretty good. And I started looking at all the other comic book Kickstarter comic book projects, and I saw like a lot of them were people like me, people who had full-time jobs, but they were pursuing it on the side. And I said, I could do this. This is something I could definitely do. Some people, before they launched their Kickstarters, they had a web series, right? Or they had a web comic book, and their comic book would be online for free, and they would build up this audience, and they would launch a Kickstarter, and they would launch from there. And so at first it seems kind of counterintuitive, right? Because you put your comic books online for free and people could read it, you know, why would they buy the book? But it works. So like I said, okay, it works for them, so I'm gonna try that. And so uh, I linked up with Gian. We worked on Crescent City Monsters for like I think a year. We were posting pages online, and then build up that audience. I followed the plan. So for a whole year, just posting pages and building a following audience, and then we launched the Kickstarter, and and the plan worked. By that first year, we had a big enough audience to launch a successful Kickstarter, and from there, it just kept growing. And then that's pretty much the origin story of like how I got into this. One of the things I was doing before I got into comic books, I had a little YouTube channel, and I was doing vlogs and videos, and I decided to focus on Harlem because in my mid-20s, I moved to Harlem, and that was like outside of Brooklyn, that was like one of my favorite places, and I was like, let me create a vlog about Harlem. And so I started like filming people and places in Harlem. And then as I was doing that, I was like, this is cool, but you know what I want to do? I want to do a web series. So the plan was like, I was going to create a web series, and I reached out to, a couple of people in terms of acting. But unfortunately, at that time, I have two daughters, and they were really young, and I couldn't, the time and effort to do it was really like
It's a lot of work.
yeah, it was a lot of work. And my wife was like, nah, you gotta be home a lot more. I was like,
The reality hit,
yeah,
right?
the reality hit. So I was like, okay, let me put this on hold. I'm gonna wait, a couple of years until my daughters get a little bit older. And so I was just kind of like hanging in there, trying to write some scripts or whatever. And then that's when the whole comic book idea came, and I was like, wait a minute. I was like, I could still write stories using comic books, instead of a web series. I'll be, writing comic books. And I was like, when I was younger, I used to write comic books. So I was like, this is like, this is like something that seems like I'm just looping back. What's the word when you loop back, or like you
It's
you
a full
kind of,
circle.
yeah, full circle. I was like headed full circle. So I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. So I was like, all right. And then so that's a part of the story too, because it like plays into the whole idea that I just love like creating and creating stories for people. That's just something that I like to do. I've been like doing that since I was young, and
Yeah.
just seems something that comes natural to me, something that I enjoy.
So why don't you talk? Let people know. I'm gonna pull it on the stream a little bit of Kisha. Talk to folks about what Kisha is. Give a short synopsis. Don't give them everything, because I want them to buy the book. It's worth the money. Trust me. And
Right.
especially if you see him at the cons, make sure that you follow him as well to see where he's gonna be. But let me show this on stream. I put this together, a nice little montage, I should say, a presentation of sorts about Kisha Demian. But would you mind talking a little about what this is, the really the beginnings of it, the roots of the story and the inspiration?
Yeah. Before I start, that's that picture that you have there. That's a wraparound cover that
Yeah.
made.
Yeah. I don't
Nice.
have that one. I need that one. I need to get that one.
Okay, I'll save one for you because I'm not printing those out anymore. So it's like once they're
Oh,
gone, they're gone. I think
okay.
I only printed like maybe 100 of those. So
Oh man. Yeah, I'm gonna need one.
yeah,
He
yeah.
calling dibs.
And you know what too? It's funny because like I remember like I used to watch interviews with creators, and they'd be like, "Man, I don't have a copy of my book, like a particular copy." And they used to wonder like, how does that happen? They're like, that's your book. How you not gonna have your own copy? But I can see how it happens, because it's
Yeah.
like I lose track of like what versions or like what printings I have, and sometimes accidentally sell it, or like I'll just lose track of it, and I'm like, damn.
Brother, this wraparound is dope. When I saw it, I said, why didn't he have this at the table when I was there? I would have bought the whole thing. It's the same issue, but I was like, you know what? I'm still gonna get it. I'm still gonna get
Yeah,
it.
what I usually do is I like for covers. What I do is I'll sell the variant covers at a little bit higher price because
Yeah.
I produce less of those, and I try to reward people who buy the variant covers because they're a little bit more expensive by just producing very little of it, so that way in the future, like if Kisha blows up, they'll have like a really rare copy.
I need this to blow up so I can say I
Yeah,
know you, right?
I
Because
read
this is pretty dope.
yeah.
Yeah,
I need
so
to be a cartoon or a movie, live action.
Yes. Yes.
yeah, hopefully that happens. So yeah, so I'm gonna give you the pitch that I usually give at my con. So it follows Kisha. She's 16 years old and she's out with her friends and they're ghost hunting. And they accidentally release a demon that possesses Kisha. And so her family sends her to an aunt who knows how to exorcise demons or get rid of them. But when she gets to the aunt's town, she's gonna see that it's full of monsters, and she actually needs the demon inside of her to actually stay alive. So the very thing that she was trying to get rid of is the thing that's gonna help her survive. Well, yeah, I was gonna say. So we've got two copies, right, or two versions of the book. It's the same story, but one is like what you're showing now is black and white with the color accents, and then on the right hand side, right there, is the cover for the comic book, and so that one's in full color. The interesting thing is when I'm at cons, people have a tough time deciding between the black and white with the color accents and the full color. It's like I can
That
see
was
them
me.
like
That was
yeah,
me.
yeah. So it's interesting because I really thought the color uh would be more popular, but it's about half and half. Sometimes maybe the color in a particular con, maybe I might sell a little bit more of the color version, but for the most part, the black and white with the color accents is on par in terms of sales
Yeah.
and preference. So
With the Bruce Lee outfit. That's
yeah. Yeah,
dope.
I was talking about that the other day, and the person asked me like, "Oh man, how did you come up with that idea?" And I had to be honest. I was like, "Well, it was really my artist Gian's idea." So how it happened is like, so I'm writing the script, and in the script, I'm like, Kisha wakes up, she's in her tracksuit, da da da. She's gonna go to her dojo, and I never said anything about the color, right? And I let Gian decide the color accents, like which colors he's gonna choose, because like you see here, like on the left hand side, you see like how he has the purple with the glass tubes and whatnot. He decided all of that, right? I didn't, I was like, just do your thing. And so he decided like I'm gonna put her in a yellow tracksuit. So I put that she was in the tracksuit. So when he sent it to me, I was like, yo, like yo, this is dope, man. And so like when he did that, people just went crazy. So I turned like the that cover that's on the right hand side, that full color cover with her in the tracksuit. I turned that into a banister. So like when I go to cons, this is what people
Mhm.
see, and people always stop. Like, hey, what's this? First they see Kisha Demon Eater. They're like, Demon Eater, what's that about? And then they see the yellow tracksuit, and then like, yo. So yeah,
I, I I love her Afro puffs. I love her whole look. I love everything about Keisha. Keisha
Yeah.
and the background. I mean, it's just dope. That now I read and I was reading about Keisha and the roots of Keisha being from West Africa, was it?
yeah, it's more Central Africa because it's
Central.
Angolian, I think. So it's like that Angolian Congo area. There's a part of the origins of the story is I was doing research on African demons, and I discovered this African demon named Kishi. And when I read about him, I was like, "Yo, this is crazy." I was like, I was like, never heard about a demon that does this. So like he was a demon in Angolan lore, and he was like this really handsome guy, and he had a hyena on the back of his head. And I was like, man, I don't know how you pulled it off, but he would be pulling in girls and doing really horrible things with them. Yes,
Oh God.
as a demon, yeah. So and I was like, man, how does he pull it off with a damn hyena in the back of his head? But I was like, but when I read about him, I was like, this demon is like crazy. I was like, so then, you know, a lot of the things, the way I come up with stories is I kind of do like a what if scenario, and I try to do what if scenarios that are like, or different, or something that just like that's crazy, like that you know that that's just like out of this world, like that's unexpected. So I was like, okay, so what if so I started asking myself, like, what if this demon Kishi, he had all sons, right? Demon sons, but he has one daughter. And so then I said, and what if he hates his daughter? Because like all he wants is sons. And so then I was like, okay, okay. And then but then I was like, you know, I need a twist, right? Because like I said, you know, my what ifs are like ideas that just like the what ifs I ask myself is like what ifs that just like kind of like are unexpected. So I said, well, you know, instead of hating her father, what if she loves her father, right? Like instead of saying, hey, I hate you too, dad, you know, she's more like I tries to seek his approval by eating her brothers, because she's a demon, she's demented, and she's thinking like, well, if I eat my brothers, he won't have anybody left but me to love. And you know, because she's crazy, right? And so that's where the story kind of goes from there, and that's why Kisha ends up eating demons. And it turns out that the and this was kind of a tricky decision because I wasn't sure if it was gonna work. I'm still not sure if it works, but I decided like the demon, right? Kishi has the daughter demon, and her name is Kisha. It's kind of a play on his name, right? Because his name is
Mhm.
Kishi, and then the person Kisha is also named Kisha. The actual human is also named Kisha. So they share the same name. And one of the reasons I wanted to do that is because I wanted to kind of dig into the idea that it's not in this volume or this book, I should say, but you're going to see that the demon who possesses Kisha becomes very obsessed with her and feels like they were meant to be together, and she will try anything to make sure that she stays
Mm,
with Kisha. So she,
Mm.
like, one of the points is like they'll the demon, you know, points out that they have the same name, and you know
like
and
Venom,
not, oh yeah, what's that?
like Venom,
Oh, like Venom? You mean like that symbiotic?
the
Yeah, like
symbiotic with the
yeah,
host.
yeah,
Like I need to be with you, and we belong
yeah,
together. That's
exactly.
dope.
So, and the demon is gonna play like tricks with Keisha
Mm.
um to kind of like manipulate her. And so like Keisha, you know, she has to stay strong and she has to stay focused and figure out, because you know sometimes the demon's not totally in, totally wrong in what the demon says, but the way she presents the information, you know, is in a way to manipulate Keisha. And so like Keisha has to figure out how, you know, how to react to some of the things that the demon does inside her head. So it's not just a fight with like, oh, so there's an internal conflict happening with the demon and Keisha, and then you know there's the external conflicts with the demons. And because the demon who possesses Keisha was eating other demons, you know, her brothers, you know, it continues on as Keisha's possessed by that demon. They just eat demons. She just eats demons. And the cool thing is she'll temporarily inherit some of the other demons' abilities if they have them. You know what I mean? So like,
And she
you
was
know,
in prison too, right? Like by her dad. Is
yeah,
that
yeah, that's
part?
the thing too. Yeah, so the demon, so her dad was like, it was like, like a parent's like, what the hell is this girl doing? So she's like, he's like, but he doesn't kill her. He just takes her, and you know, he's like, all right, I'm just gonna banish you and put you somewhere where you stay out of trouble. So he kind of banishes her. But there's a whole story of how she ends up in New Orleans anyway, in this glass jar. You know, it's like there's a whole story. I haven't created it yet, but there's like a journey of how she she ends up starts off in like Central Africa and ends up in New Orleans,
Wow,
in the glass jaw. But that's a whole
that's what's
different
up.
story.
That's what's up.
He almost let out some juice.
I
That's gonna be
know. I was like,
impossible.
don't tell it all.
I want to know though. I love the art, man. So how did you link up with Jen? Like, how did y'all link up? How did y'all get? I know you talked about it a lot, and you pretty much got like pretty much the whole story that you met up with Jen. But how did you pair up with him? How did y'all link up? And are y'all still working together? And are y'all still gonna work together with future books?
Yeah. So Gian's my boy, man. He yeah, without Gian, there's no Crescent City Monsters. He's like the other storyteller of Crescent City Monsters, because what I write, he draws, but his artwork is so great. Like, he's telling his version of the story too. When you look at Kisha Demon Eater or Crescent City Monsters. So, and the way I met Gian is, I was looking for an artist for Crescent City Monsters, and it's funny too because I thought I had found one, but it just wasn't working out the way I had planned it to. So I started looking again, and it's funny, if I showed you like some of the some of the artwork from a couple of different artists I was considering, you'd be like, oh wow, it's a good thing you found Gene. So I was like, all right. But yeah, so there was a website called, well, and there still is a website called Deviant Art, and I was like just going through Deviant Art, looking through the different artists, and it takes a lot of time because artists have different styles, and different things that you look for. And I was like, and I ran into Gene's page on Deviant Art, and I saw one of his art samples, and it turns out that he was the illustrator for one of the books that I bought in Kickstarter, one of the comic books I bought in Kickstarter. I was like, oh, I recognize this page. He's the artist for this book that I backed in Kickstarter. So I was like, this is cool, because now he's an artist. He understands that, okay, there's some deadlines, and with Kickstarter, because sometimes hiring an artist is um a little tricky, because the scheduling doesn't work out. They might not be move as quickly as you want them to, because
Mhm.
it takes a lot of time. So I was like, okay, at least he'll understand this is going to be for a Kickstarter, and that if we have a schedule, we should try to stick to it as much as possible. So I reached out to him, and I said, are you available for some commissions? Because I wanted to see how he worked, right? Because for me, like, being when I work with somebody, I need someone who can communicate properly, right? Because
Mhm.
I don't want to have to always be the first one to be like, hey, I don't like daily like checking in with people. I don't like that, right? I like, hey, um this is what we're going to be doing, this is the thing, and then as they go along, they'll send me the work. And I prefer people who communicate, let me know what's going on without me having to
Chase them,
check
yeah.
chase them or
Mhm.
check in with them.
Micromanage.
Yeah, I don't like micromanaging at all. So like, communication is important for me. So I was like, um let me ask him to do a couple of commissions and see, if we could work together. And the two commissions he did, it blew my mind. I was like, man, and it was better than what he had on DeviantArt. And I was like, damn, this is really good. And I was like, yo, he was really professional. So I was like, hey, are you available to do a comic book? And then he was like, yeah. So I was like, okay. And so I was like, I sent him the first 3 pages of the script, and then when he sent me the first page, man, I was blown away. I was like, oh my god! I was like, I'm telling you, like, his artwork that he sent me was better than I expected. It was because, like I said, I think his artwork on DeviantArt, I'm not sure if it was because of the type of story, but to me, like the stuff he sent me was even better than what I saw on in his portfolio. So that was a surprise. I was like, damn. I was like, yo, I was like, this is gonna be crazy when he sent me that thing. And so I was like, wow. I was like, oh man. I was like, this is gonna be good. So then the other thing too was coloring the book, right? So I decided I was gonna make it black and white because at that time I was a big Walking Dead fan, and I wanted to create a horror too, just like Robert Kirkman did, and I wanted to create a horror like he did. So I was like, it was in black and white. So I was like, I'm gonna make my book in black and white too. So I was like, so I said to Gene, I was like, hey Gene, can you do grayscale too? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, I sent him a sample of because I had like comicsology, so I sent him like a sample, like a screenshot of like a couple of pages from Walking Dead. I said, yeah, can you grayscale like this? And he was like, yeah, yeah, no problem. And so I was like, cool. He sent me the grayscales, and I was blown away. I was like, what the fuck is this? I
Yeah.
was like,
He's dope, man.
no.
Yeah.
I was like, I was like, this is not even the grayscale sample that I sent him. It was like, because if you remember how Walking Dead, their
Yep.
grayscale is nothing like
Nothing.
what Gian did. I was like, yo, this is gonna be crazy. So man, when he sent me so when he sent me the original like without the grayscale that they I was like, wow, oh man, this is gonna be something. But then he sent me the grayscale version, and I was like, I was
Mm.
just like, man, you don't know.
So
This
whose
is
idea was it to do the color splash though? Because that
oh
does
for
something.
Keisha.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was my idea. Actually, you know what? I take that back because I remember Gian had talked about color splashes before, um, but I think it might have been with Crescent City Monsters.
Because
So we
I've never seen it outside of a cover. I've never seen it inside the pages like that. Like
yeah,
not
well,
really.
to be honest, I think there are a few books that's done it before. I think Sin City does it. It's black and white with color accents,
Yeah. Yeah, that's
but
true.
but sometimes what they do is trying to remember if sometimes like what they'll do is color accents, but it'll be like one color. It'll be like
Yeah.
red.
Yeah.
Like I think there was a Wolverine comic book like that too. It's been done a few times before, so it's not like I definitely can't claim fame to it like, oh, we invented this. It's
No,
like
no,
the-
and I get that. I think that the color splash on it has three dimensionality. Like that, what you're talking about is somebody just putting like red on it, right?
okay, yeah,
This is different. Like this
yeah,
has
yeah.
variations in it. It's like 3D almost.
No, you're right, because there's this one page. Let me see if I could find it real quick. There's this one page that he did where someone's holding a knife, and it when you look at the page, it looks like and he's holding a glowing knife, and when you look at the glowing knife, it looks like it's glowing off the page. It's crazy. I was like, man, I was like, how did he do that? But you're right. Oh, like this one here. Yeah, so like this here, he's holding a little. It looks like it's glowing off the page. You're right. It's like
Yeah,
3D. Yeah,
yeah, it is. It pops
yes,
right off of the page. It's not
Mhm.
like just matte black or black and white, and then the color's just there. It
Like a
literally
neon
looks.
light, like it's his
yeah,
bright.
Yeah,
exactly.
that's
Yeah.
crazy.
So yeah, to be honest, so I can't remember if it was um Gene and I who. Well, I know for Keisha, I told him like, hey, let's do the color splashes, but we had talked about it before, and I can't remember if it was Gene's idea or mine idea, but
So is this part of your plan to create this world? You talked about it, and I also wanted to at least talk about like Louisiana. Why Louisiana? That which I think is a awesome space to actually think about horror and history there. But like you're creating this big universe, correct? And that includes the Crescent City, Keisha, and other properties that you're thinking of. But what does that look like?
yeah. So I wanted to create a world that was like a supernatural world because it started with when I did Kisha, people kept asking me, "Is Kisha in the same world as Crescent City Monsters?" And initially, I was like, "No, it's not in the same world." And the reason I wanted them to be in different worlds is because I didn't want to like overlap the stories and have to worry about like something that I wrote in Crescent City Monsters
Mm.
not working in Kisha. And they said, "Oh, well, in Crescent City Monsters, page 13, you wrote." And then, well, in
Oh
Kisha,
God.
so I was like, I wanted to avoid that. So I was like, nah, it's not the same. It's not the same world, just to make things easier for me. But then as I was thinking about it, I was like, you know what? I should because I have a lot of Crescent City Monsters fan. And I think they would enjoy Kisha also. And I said, as a way to pull them in, I can put them in the same world. So I was like, okay, I'll do that. But what I'll do is I'll connect them, but not in a way so deep where like the stories I have to keep track of things. Well, for now, because I was at, in the future, I'll probably be ready to connect them even a little bit more. But I was like, so what I'll do is I'll just make a cameo appearance by the Grunch,
Mhm.
one of my favorite characters in the book. And I was like, so I had an appearance of the Grunch in Keisha Demon Eater. So I was like, if you follow Crescent City Monsters, you'll definitely see, oh, that's the Grunch. So you'll make that connection and be like, okay, that's the same world. And so then from there, I was like, I wanted to create another title because I realized like horror was my thing like now. It was like supernatural horror
Mhm.
'cause, and it's crazy because initially that wasn't really the plan. I was just gonna write, whatever I wanted to. I wasn't really gonna stick to a particular genre. But then but then I wrote Keisha Demon Eater, and I was like, man, yeah, people are gonna loop me into this hard thing. I was like, so you know what? Which I didn't really have a problem with, but again, like that wasn't like my plan. So I was like, okay, so you know what? I'm gonna lean into this. And so I was looking at the Universal monsters, right? And I was like, oh, that's kind
Mhm.
of cool. I was like, the idea of the Universal monsters. I was like, what if I created my own version of the Universal monsters? The Universal monsters being the Mummy, Frankenstein, Dracula, um, the Invisible Man, and who else? The werewolf, right? So
Yep.
I was like, all right, so I'm going to create these characters, and I wanted to target that of a little bit more to a younger audience, right? So I came up with like a title that I thought was appropriate for that age range. I was like Young Monster Crew YMC. So I was like, so I did that, and I kind of like gave more of like a modern spin to it. So like the Mummy, he's like a half mummy, and he's got these the wraps kind of like serve as like appendages, extra
Nice.
appendages, kind of like how like Doc Ock is. And
Yep.
I made the werewolf. He's like from South American, kind of like Aztec kind of guy. And so I wanted to create like characters from all over the world. Like so instead of Dracula, I have a female vampire, and then the Mummy. Instead of being Egyptian, I was like, okay, I'm gonna make it Nubian because I wanted to kind of just the one thing that really bothers me is the whole like, oh, were the Egyptians black or not? Da, da, da. I was like,
Mhm.
okay, to avoid that, I was like, I'm gonna make him Nubian, and there's no way somebody's gonna be asking me like if I'm gonna want to argue whether or not uh, a Nubian mummy should be black because of
Yeah.
course black. So I was like, let me do that, and then the Japanese, like I said, the Japanese girl's a vampire, and then I made an invisible boy character, and it's interesting because I was like, man, I was like, honestly, I was like, invisible powers is cool and all, but that's not really exciting. I
Mm.
was like, so I was kind of like going back and forth between the invisible thing, and the interesting thing about that was like his race. I was like, should I make him black? I was like, because I was like, that whole
Mhm.
um black man being invisible kind of
Yep.
thing, is very kind of deep. But then I was like, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna make him white, like how how Eminem grew up, right? So like the idea that he's invisible, right? As someone who kind of grew up in that environment,
Yep.
then to kind of explore from there and kind of add things to him that made him not is it's just not his powers. I realized like it wasn't just his powers that I needed to kind of make him interesting. It was who he is also.
Mhm.
So
That's interesting. That's pretty dope, actually, to do
Yeah.
that.
yeah, and I was like, because the thing too is like, as a writer, I was like, okay, um, I'm always, making sure that I represent, black people too. But then I was like, on the flip side, I should, be, I should be as because it's kind of weird to be like, say, I'm trying to fight for inclusivity, but not be
Yeah.
inclusive yourself. So
I mean,
so I was
it plays to the current state of affairs even now, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you keep talking about like folks in rural areas, especially white folks that feel invisible.
yeah,
So you
yeah.
know what I mean? So it's pretty parallel. That's pretty dope.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to do. So I hope I can do justice to it.
Yeah.
It's gonna be, I just it's one of those things that you really need to write correctly, like in a really it needs to be done right in order for people to understand and appreciate,
Yeah.
like what you're trying to do. Because if it's not done right, then it just comes off kind of cheesy or like, and then then you'll have people who don't understand it. Why isn't the whole team black? It's like I could have done that, yeah, but you know, it's not. I think challenging yourself as a writer is one of the things that you should always do. Like try to
Yeah.
put yourself in something that you're not typically used to doing, or in something that is not super comfortable. Like
Yeah.
you have to stretch yourself in terms of being able to artistically um show people what's in your head, because it's hard, because like you'll have ideas in your head, but being able to implement it is like is hard, because
That's
like
hard.
coming up with ideas is I don't want to say is like super easy, but it's easy relative to actually implementing the idea, because a lot
Mhm.
of people come up with ideas, and that's one of the things people always come up to me and say, hey, I've got this idea, and they might share it, and then they're like, what do you think? I'm like, most ideas, like I would say 75% ideas are good, right? Like as real as it's a bad idea, it's got to be really horrible. The key is implementing it, right? Because
Mhm.
like you could tell me an idea, and when I hear it, I'm picturing in my mind what you're telling me, but it's through my interpretation, right? And I could be like, that is a horrible idea. But then if you like draw or like make a film out of it, and then and I'm like, wow, okay, I see what he's talking about
Mhm.
with his idea. Like his version of that idea is good, even though when I first heard it, I was like, yo, this is a horrible idea, So so that's the thing about ideas, is like sometimes you really don't like somebody telling you an idea, you really
Mhm.
can't, you know, judge if it's a really good idea until you see the implementation. And that's the key. Like implementing your ideas is like the thing.
That's
And I mean, someone could tell me like just a mediocre idea, like or an idea that somebody thinks is mediocre or that's been done before. If you implement it in your own way, that could be like, like damn, okay, this is unexpected.
Right.
something that you brought up about particularly where you put them in New Orleans, Louisiana in particular. There's so much there, so much content. I'm sure. I know you were talking about like a third piece to the puzzle of that world. Um, I immediately thought of the magical side, the voodoo piece of Louisiana, which could possibly tune in to all those things. But that's neither here nor there. I know Temples, we'd be here all day. But Temples, you have a question?
Yeah, definitely that we talked about Jen, and I'm glad y'all clicked up because that's like a great teamwork right there. Like a buddy cop. You know what I'm saying? You do the art, he does the you do the story, he does the art, and y'all came up with this great illustration, and then y'all got more stuff coming up later on. So definitely congrats on that part. Um, but what's the future of Dream Fury? The comics, the properties. How do you envision the next few years? And how, a second question, a part of that, how can people get a hold of all this? If you could tell them that also.
Yeah, so the future of Dream Fury Comics, like I said, is going to be those three titles and creating a world off of those three titles. So like those are going to be, like, I guess, the flagship titles: Crescent City Monsters, Kisha Demon Eater, and this new book coming out, Young Monster Crew. So I'm going to try to split everything out from there. And then what I'm going to do too is, I was thinking about it, is I'm probably going to do another a different imprint, uh, because anything outside of that world, I was any of the books that's like outside of the world, I was going to create a different imprint, call it something else besides Dream Fury Comics. So in the future, I'm definitely going to be leaning into more, supernatural stories. Also, going to be dabbling into some sci-fi stories, and I want to do. I have an idea for a story that I haven't really told anybody yet, but it's just kind of percolating, and it's going to be more like a it's, I guess maybe you could call it a slice of life story,
Mm.
because it's going to be, no one's going to have any powers. Just going to be real people. But it's an idea that I had. I thought that would be kind of cool. That involves a comic book.
Newton, did you
Writer.
just drop an exclusive possibility situation on the Back
Yeah,
to
I
Basic
did.
show? What?
Yeah, I wanted to do a comic book about. I can say, I'll say at least this much: a comic book about a comic book writer.
Mm.
That, yeah, I'll say that much. So I thought that would be interesting, because I was like, oh, put in some of the experiences that you get that I went through as a comic book creator, and going through cons and stuff like that, and just the whole world of conventions. I was like, it's pretty. I was like, I think I create a pretty interesting story from that. So so that's one of I mean, like most writers, and it's not unique to me. You always have like tons of ideas in your head, and it's always just a matter of figuring out which ones are going to work, and finding the time to actually complete the stories.
I know
Yeah.
we're at the tail end of the show, but I just wanted to let you know. Um, well, before we say peace. I just wanted to give you some time to think about maybe a saying, or just something that you can give folks to kind of follow their dreams, or an inspirational quote that you live by, or just any advice to people who are in your situation, or trying to be like you. Maybe you are the inspiration. So, what would you leave with folks to kind of either get them off the couch and follow their dreams, and what would you give? What advice would you give them?
So the advice I would give to people is just to do it. Um, Even if, like, let's say, because there are a lot of people, who come to me and they're like, well, how do I get into comics? And I'll explain the process. You find an artist, you get a letterer, you print the book. And when you talk about the cost of creating a comic book, then then they're like, oh, okay, maybe I'll try something else, because it's really expensive to create a comic book, right?
Yeah.
So the advice I'm going to give is going to be kind of geared towards people in that situation, because I was fortunate in that my job allowed me to be able to pay an artist. Some people aren't in that fortunate situation where they have enough money left over to pay an artist. So the advice I would give is if you really wanted to create a comic book, is to write first. Just write. That's the most important thing. Like, I can't exaggerate on how important that is. Like, don't worry that you can't find an artist and thing. Just write everything, um as much as you can, while you like save your money, or pay your artist, because you can do the slow burn, right? So like,
Mhm.
um don't be discouraged if it takes you 2 years to do like a, I don't know, like a 26-page comic book, right? If you have to slowly pay the artist, trust me, you'll get there, and the 2 years will go by quick. you know so don't get discouraged by that, um especially by the cost. But like I said, the important thing is make sure that you write out as much as you can ahead of time, because once you have the writing done, it's just a matter of just you know finding the artist. And when I say write, you really should, how should I put this? You should write something that's different. Don't If there's something similar out there to it, then that's a sign. That's I'm not sure if this is a common term, but I used to be a IT consultant, and there's this term they use for, and it's a bad smell, right? That's what that's one of the bad smells. Like if like there's something similar to it, try to create something different. That's especially as an independent comic book creator. I can tell you that it's very hard to compete with Marvel and DC on like the superhero level, right? Because everybody's growing up on Marvel and DC stuff. So if you do something in the superhero realm, make sure it's different. Something that's unique, and it's got to be really unique. Not just like, oh, the powers are different. No, it's gotta be there's gotta be like something different about it. Because it's hard. It'll be hard for you to compete with like superheroes from Marvel and DC.
Yeah.
So like, and if it's a non-superhero book, that's even better, because now you're offering something that's unique usually. And so something, like I said, create something different, something unique when you write. And like I said, just the first thing you should be doing is writing. Make sure that you have everything, as many issues written out as possible, as many pages as possible, and try to go out as far as possible, because what'll happen is as you start writing, you might start writing the fifth issue and then realize like, oh, you know what, there's something that I can change in the story, and then you might have to go back to this first issue and tweak it a little bit, or maybe the second issue and tweak it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So the further out you go in terms of how many issues you write out, and the better. That way you can always go back, and like, let's say there's a surprise on the fifth issue that that you only came up with while you were writing on the fifth issue. You can kind of like plant little clues that it's coming in the first and second issue. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
The
things like that.
breadcrumbs.
Yeah, exactly. Breadcrumbs. So things that things like that'll help you out with the writing, because the writing is really important. We the of course the artwork is important too. As a comic book reader myself, like if sometimes like even if a story is really good and I hate the art, I
Yeah.
just can't. I just put it down. And there are a couple of books like that. People are like, you should read it, but I'm like, man, I really don't like this
Artwork is
artwork.
trash. Yeah.
I can't push through this thing no matter how good the story is. So because it kind of upsets me.
Yeah.
Because I'm like this. I was like, you couldn't find a better artist than this. But yeah, so yeah, I was like, so like just write. That's the first thing, and then take, even if it takes baby steps, just keep doing it, because it can become discouraging. Because when I started, my goal was just to like create. I took it like at baby steps, because and this is funny because I'm giving people advice to write, but when I started, that's not what I did. I did things, and like, because I knew I'm a procrastinator, right? And like I was at that phase where you overplan, because I was like, oh, this is how you do a comic book, and this is what I should do, this is what I'm gonna do. I was like planning all this stuff, and I knew that I was gonna get stuck in the planning mode if I just didn't write. And I knew like I wasn't the type at that time. I wasn't the type of person to sit down and write a whole first issue. Like, I didn't really exercise that muscle yet. So what I did is I was writing 3 to 5 pages at a time. I would like write the first 3 pages, have no idea like what was coming next. I was just like, here, Gian. And then I write the next 5 pages, here, Gian. And I was doing it like that until like as I was progressing, the story came along. And I did that because personally, like I know I was not going to I knew I was not going to move as fast as I wanted to do if I didn't do that. If I didn't say, okay, let's start. Because if I didn't start, I either was gonna start way later or I wasn't gonna start at all. So I knew like I just got to do this. So I just jumped in there. Was like, all right, here's the first 3 pages, and fortunately for me, it worked out. It's like,
Yeah, fortunately, that's
Yeah.
awesome, man.
Broke
That's
it
good
down.
advice.
Yeah.
Well, we want to thank you again for being a part of this podcast. It was a really cool conversation. I'm glad people got to meet you virtually. Hopefully, they see you at cons. And we're gonna make sure that we continue this promotion of you and you all and your work because it's exceptional. So, on behalf of the Back to Basics team, just want to say thank you for coming through, representing Brooklyn in the Brooklyn way that we can. And making sure that that folks know about your projects and what you're doing because it's important. And we want to make sure that we are supporting this brother. Make sure you go out, whatever Kickstarter comes up next for the 3rd entry into this world, or if you just want to go to Comic-Cons, go find out where he's going to be next, and then make sure that you purchase. These books are worth it. Everybody, this is Newton Lilavois. And we're gonna give him mad props today. We appreciate all the love and support that he's given us. And who knows, you might see him on a small screen at some point, directing and doing the thing that he's supposed to do with the options coming through. Thank you so much, brother. And I hope you have a good one. Everybody, enjoy your day. Keep believing in your dream. You heard it from Newton today. You heard it from us. So that's what we're here for. If you need us, let us know. All right. Peace out, y'all.
Peace.
Peace, guys.